What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Music in the Minor League. Today we're talking with Charles Bryant, who is easily one of our favorite songwriters. Also one of the people that if we had to make a list of people who represented the best of Houston, Charles would be near the top of that list. He's just stellar. Back when Kim and I were starting out as Brightwire, we used to play at his turnstile, junk piled, and railroaded Tuesdays over at the Last Concert Cafe. And when we kick off the podcast, you hear the story of how I actually met Charles. Before we get going, we got to do our housekeeping. So, you got to get that out of the way. But as always, we try to keep it brief. First, you like what you hear? Subscribe to the podcast and tell your friends. That helps us out a lot. Second, if you like the bands like Charles or anyone we've covered in the past, make sure you go follow them on all the social media outlets you can. Stream their music. It helps them find new venues and keeps them going. Finally, if you're listening to this the day it's released, we'll be over at Shoe Chai and Charlie's Big Top tonight, playing with Grifters and Shills and Junebird. And then to close out the month of February, we will be over at Mod Coffee House in Galveston, Texas for just a couple of hours of us playing tunes out on the patio. It's always a good time. Come hang and look forward to it. March, we'll be out Union Tavern with Grifters and Shills, Matt Woods, and Sean Holcomb. Matt Woods is a heck of a singer-songwriter, country musician from Knoxville, Tennessee, and definitely worth your time. We'd love to see you there. Now we're going to kick it off with a song from Charles's new album called Unrequited. This song is entitled Back to You. Hope you dig it.
Well, it's 3 a.m, Houston time, and here I am, guitar in hand, trying to find some lines again that'll join up with this melody, unlock the cage and set me free, and take me far away to someplace new. But every line that I write down just takes me right back around to you. And now the sun's starting to come up, and the coffee ain't ever strong enough. So I'm searching for my cigarettes, the ones I hid last time I quit, the time I swore that time I was through. But every line that I write down just takes me right back around to you. And this is where the bridge will go, if I can find some words that seem to flow, and maybe add a harmony or two. And I might play my guitar here just to add a little atmosphere, just something simple, tried and true. But every line that I write down just takes me right back around to you. Now the sun's starting to go down, and the words I want ain't wanting to be found. So I'll throw it in my dresser drawer and maybe come back again for more when I ain't got better things to do. When every line that I write down don't take me right back around to you. When every line that I write down don't take me right back around to you. And every line that I write down don't take me right back around to you.
All right, to start, I'm going to set the stage for you. So many years ago, a friend of ours named Kenny Pipes had Almost Austin house concerts. And he brought in all these great people. And it was like a music venue in his living room. It was amazing. And after one of the shows we went to, it may have been Malcolm Holcomb, I can't remember. And he's like, yeah, my neighbor's playing after this is over. And you're at Kenny, someone's already played 2 sets. Wouldn't believe this about me, but I may have probably already drank like a 6-pack of beer. And it's like, no. Like, man, I just want to go home. Like, I don't want to... Your neighbor, come on. I just saw Malcolm Holcomb. I just want to go home. Who's going to beat that? And then, this guy hops up on stage with at the time, pretty good shape Cordoba classical, which first thing was a red flag. It was like, he's going to play classical guitar. Like, I'm going to sit here through a recital. And then for about the next, 45 minutes to an hour, I watched Charles Bryant just beat the shit out of that thing and play some just amazing songs that had you crying at points and made you feel all the feels, and handed me, I think, Sandcastles on CDs as box, and it was just like, man, I really saw something. And then, you know, since then, Charles has been all over the place. And where's he at tonight? He's right here with us, here at the Sterling Municipal Library here in Baytown.
That was a really good segue.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, man, it's the truth. Like, you've already been at Kenny's. You get there at 6, it's like 10:30, 11ish, and it's like, yeah, my neighbor's about to play. Like, oh, you know, how good's your neighbor? I mean, Kenny was a good person as far as music. This is who you need to see, but you're kind of like, all right, you know, live down the street in Pasadena? And then, yeah, man, Charles just living down the street in Pasadena comes out and just blows you away, and there's articles in Texas Music Magazine. There's people all around the country and the world that know that Charles is kick-ass. So, man, thank you for coming in and hanging out with us tonight.
Well, thank you, Sam. I got chills reliving that because, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, I don't know if you've been by my place whenever you're around Kenny's, but the dude only lives like 200 yards from my house.
Yeah.
So it was just amazing. This guy named Craig Kinsey, I don't know if you know who Craig is. He's a Houston musician. Used to be in a band called Medicine Show that became Sideshow Tramps. And I'd known Craig since he was a teenager. And he's the one that got me started listening to Bob Dylan, you know. There's a reason I was mentioning Craig, and you may have to edit this part out. He's the one that said, you got to get on Facebook. I had been writing for years, you know, but it was therapy for me. Mm-hmm. And Kathy had met Craig. He was working for a bookstore, a religious bookstore, and I was a fan of this guy named John Michael Talbot. I don't know if you heard of him. He was a Franciscan monk. He used to be in a band called Mason Prophet.
Yeah, he's like a contemporary Christian musician.
Yeah. And exactly. And he was, at the time, Mason Prophet. I think I've read this. I don't know if there's provenance or not to prove it, but the Eagles were influenced by them. It's a folk, a rock, him and his brother Terry. And he became a Christian, and he started doing this contemporary Christian music. So when I started dating my wife, you know, she was into that. And I would listen to, I said, I want to play the guitar like this cat, you know. Mm-hmm. So Craig, there's a fast forward, the guy became a Franciscan monk, this Talbot guy. And Craig was dabbling in Catholicism at the time, and I'd been dabbling in it too. So that's where their friendship started. Kathy met him, and Craig, like I said, Craig's got terminal Dylan. So we'd been friends for about a decade, and he knew I wrote. And when I got sick, I said I got to try to do something with my songs. You know, that's a long story. Maybe we'll go into it later if you want to talk about that. But he said, you got to get on Facebook, dude. People don't know that they don't know you. And I said, I don't want to do Facebook. You know, that's not me. That's not my personality. Just like with real estate, you know. And
yeah.
So I got on it, and you know how when you first get on Facebook, you don't know your way around the neighborhood. Just serendipitously, I saw Kenny Pipes and a lady named Donna McKenzie.
Yeah,
she had been a disc jockey I listened to her for years.
Oh yeah,
and, she was raving about, and it probably was Malcolm's show that she had went to.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I clicked on it, and she was the one talking about Almost Austin. I clicked on it, said, Pasadena? I mean, we don't have anything in Pasadena.
Right, yeah. I mean, he was pulling in, like, you know, there was a point there where the Duck was getting threatened by the people he was pulling in.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he was pulling in, like, Will Kimbrough, Otis Gibbs, like, Tommy Womack, the other half of Daddy.
David Olney.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was Sergio Webb. I mean, you know, it was just, I mean, you're just like, and you're in this dude's living room.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which it sounds low, but I mean, he tore out a bedroom and put in seating. There was like lights in the ceiling.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was seriously like a 60-person venue that was in his house.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a shrine now. I mean, the pictures and everything.
God, yeah.
So when I saw that, I thought, golly, this is, and I looked on the MapQuest and I thought, this is right. And for an agoraphobic, you know, I mean, 200 yards from the house, it's like, this is great, you know. So I don't remember how I reached out to him, but he allowed me to drop off Sandcastles, and I didn't hear from him, and I thought, man, this is just not his cup of tea, which is fine. And finally he texted me or Facebook messaged me, and he dug the album, and that's where the friendship started. And yeah, I mean, what a blessing that guy has been for me, because like you said, he would let me play the after shows, and it wasn't uncommon for everyone, like, to depart, you know.
Yeah.
And I understand that too, because here's an old cat and is thinking this guy was worth his salt. There's we'd know his name. And that's been one of the double-edged swords of starting late. I didn't play my first open mic till I was 50 at the Mucky Duck. I played, nursing home ministry, things where I didn't feel threatened or vulnerable or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But so I get it. I get both sides of it. If I were looking for that perspective, I would have reticence too,
Well, that was kind of my thing too. I was trying to put the timeline together. Did you record Sandcastles before you even started playing live, or?
Yeah. So I'll try not to go on like I tend to. There's a joke I tend to say. My dad, he would ask me, he'd say, "Son, I ask you what time it was, not how to build a clock,"
Yeah.
So I'll get off tangent.
No, you're good, man.
So I was working in that plant I was telling you about, and I did really well. I was working in a chemical plant. This is 2008, and I was doing well. I had gotten out of the real estate market. I was making a regular income, good insurance, and I have a wife and 5 kids, so all that was great. But the way they work out there, Sam, it's 4 on, 4 off 12s. But you work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., you're on call for 4 days, and 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., graveyard shifts, and you're off call, which is cool. I like that type of shift. But they were calling us in on our call days, and it wasn't unusual for me to get called in every day. So I'd work a lot of 12/12s, and I was in my mid 40s when it went back out there. So doing heavy labor in your, mid 40s, could be pretty tough, especially when you're getting ready to go to bed, which is okay. I mean, I said, that's what you sign up for. That's what you got to do. But when you're getting ready to go to bed and you got these rail cars to get, my thing was, they called me the tallow man, because it's like that old fable, don't throw me in the briar patch. Mm-hmm. Well, I'd been out there in my 20s. At this particular plant, it's called Stolthaven, this Norwegian company. I've been out there, and it's smelly, messy. It's tallow. And I don't know if you ever dealt with tallow or know what tallow is. It's what they make soaps and makeup and that.
Yeah.
And it can be pretty smelly and messy, greasy, but it's also safe, because a lot of the products out there, a drop of it will kill you. And so I was like, I'll be the tallow man, and nobody would bother me. And so I was having a good time with it. But man, when you're 46, 47 years old and you're just working your tail off, climbing these rail cars and hooking these hoses up steam. So what would happen ultimately is, like, my body's like, you got to go to sleep, dude. And it's like, no, I got rail cars to pump. So I'd go hit the candy machine, and I would eat Snickers and Cokes and get that energy.
Oh, yeah.
And it worked like a champ for about 9 months. And my weight went up substantially. I mean, we're talking 50, 60 pounds. And my anxiety was going up synonymous with my weight.
Yeah, because of all the sugar and caffeine
Exactly.
on top of that. Yeah, then blood pressure probably going up.
And I started having panic attacks again. And my boundaries were closing in on me. And I'm saying, I'm son of a gun, man. I hadn't been agoraphobic in 10 years, and I could see the handwriting on the wall. So I went to a psychiatrist, and I gave him the whole spiel. I said, I've got to keep this job. You got to put me on something. And I asked him for Valium, and he said, yeah, I'll give you Valium. So he put me on Valium. And Valium was a wonder drug for me. I had to work with the safety guy out there, because, he said, okay, you can take this. My nickname out there was Chuck. Chuck, you can take it, but you got to take 4 hours off. Well, Texas is a right to work state, and I needed that job. It's like, well, I can't take this stuff. So the way I would skirt it is I would take it before I got on the clock. So they can't say technically I took it while I was there, even though I was bending the rules. And at lunch hour, I say, okay, 1 pill is 4 hours, so a half a pill, 2 hour, a quarter pill is an hour, So I would try to deal with my conscience at the same time, not be so overwhelmed with panic that I lost my job. But what happened, Sam, is I was needing more and more of this stuff, and I was started cheating, because I got to have one now. I'm panicking. So, but what I would notice is, like, they'd give us Gatorade in the summer, because we'd be outdoors sweating, and I would drink this Gatorade, and like within 5 or 10 minutes, I would just start shaking violently. Well, I was needing more and more Valium, and so I called my supervisor over. We were having a cleanup day. The head of this company from Norway was coming in, so we didn't have any work to do other than clean it up. So when he drove by, he'd think, man, my plant looks pretty good, And so I was picking up trash, and every time I take a step, my heart would just start this arrhythmia thing, palpitating or whatever it was doing, and like a muscle spasm. And I would stop, and it would stop. I'd take another step, and I'm like, son of a gun, what am I going to do about this? And this went on every time I take a step. And at this stage, I was starting to hide from people. I would find buildings to hide in just to try to pull my shit together, and finally I said, I kind of said a prayer. I said, God, I know I told Kathy they're going to carry me out of here in Pine Box, but I'm rethinking this right now. I don't know if this is the way to go. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I sat there, thought on it, chewed on it, and I called my supervisor over and I said, Vic, I need help. He said, what's wrong? I said, yeah. I said, I'm having some issues. I said, I'm taking that medicine. He said, how many are you taking a day? I said, I'm taking about 4 a day. He says, damn. He said, well, let's go talk to Bill, the safety man. Well, Bill knew me my first trip out there. I'd made all the way up to operations supervisor, and thankfully, he didn't fire me. He said, figure it out this time, Chuck. Well, this time, Sam, we had the internet. When I'd been out there in the 90s, that hadn't come along yet. Gosh, actually, I started out there in 88. I went from 88 to 93. So, yeah, the internet wasn't a thing, and you just had to go to a library like this and find some old antiquated book and try to figure it out, or at the San Jacinto Library. So what I discovered is I was a diabetic, and it was confirmed through all my research and stuff. I'll try to make it interesting without going into too much minutia, but in part of my discovery is that people with panic attacks have difficulty metabolizing carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And I just kind of cynically said to them and said, well, shit, I'm not going to eat anymore, And I thought, well, don't eat, fast, see what happens. And I was getting to the point where I was taking Xanax, which I'd been given Xanax as a teenager for my panic attacks. So it was getting atomic bomb time. When Charles is taking Xanax, shit's hitting the fan. And I fasted, dude. I didn't need anything. No Xanax, no Valium, no booze, nothing. I'm like, well, son of a bitch, what is going on here? Fasted the second day. No panic attacks, don't need anything. I'm getting irritable. I'm hungry. Third day, fasted again, nothing. I told Kathy, I said, I think I'm on to something here, Day 4, I'm really getting irritated, but I'm not panicking. I said, you know what, Kathy, I think I'm going to try to eat something, but just something healthy. So she went to Wendy's and got me a baked potato. And Sam, I ate that baked potato, and I bet you within 5 minutes, I was freaking ready to climb the walls.
Going out like pure carbohydrate.
Pure carbohydrate.
But
Yeah, exactly. I researched that the glycemic index, I think, is in the 80s compared to sucrose sugars like in the 50s. So you're right. It's actually
just pure starch.
Yeah, more pernicious than sugar. And so Kathy's got me breathing in a bag. You're fine. You're fine. I said, okay, I'm on to something. So what I discovered was this thing called reactive hypoglycemia. So I knew from my research that when you're panicking, it's the fight or flight hormone. Adrenaline. The actual name is epinephrine, but a doctor changed it to adrenaline. So I'm like, okay, well, where the hell is this adrenaline coming from? And when I researched why Valium worked, we have a neurotransmitter called GABA, G-A-B-A, gamma-aminobutyric acid. And the molecules from the benzos, as well as ethanol, alcohol, they attach to the GABA receptor. And there's like bands. And the GABA receptor expands like a donut, and it lets sodium hypochlorite, which is salt, flow through the GABA. And the sodium hypochlorite is what neutralizes adrenaline. So that's why when we take a pill, that's the mechanism that's taking place. It's expanding the GABA, and you're chilling. But once I knew the mechanism, it's like, okay, well, I know the mechanism, but where the hell is the adrenaline coming from? And it was through that research I discovered that when you, like you said, Sam, when you hit that sugar rush, then your pancreas will dump a lot of insulin to handle it. And what happens when you're type 2 diabetic, which I was eventually diagnosed with, is compared to type 1, is it's knocking on the door. The pancreas, the insulin is knocking on the door of the cell, but it can't permeate. Now, one theory is because when you put on weight, like I had put on a lot of weight, that it encapsulates, it covers the cell. Yeah. So you got a shitload of insulin, but it just can't get through. But what happens is so much free-floating insulin, once it does permeate, then you've got too much insulin, and you go into super hypo compared to hyper, low sugar. And guess what happens then? You go into something called gluconeogenesis, which is a conversion of fat to energy, to glucose. Guess what hormone is used for that? Adrenaline. And I said, okay, I figured this out. I went to, Kathy told me about this endocrinologist. And I gave him all this research. I said, look, my insurance is about to run. I was on short-term with my plant and studying my ass off, dude. And I'd already pursued the allergy angle. I thought maybe it's allergies. So I said, I think I figured this out. And he got angry at me for playing doctor, But I said, Doc, you got to do a 4-hour fasting GTT, glucose tolerance test. He goes, okay, yeah, I think you're right, but let me be the doctor. I said, okay, yes, sir. So I get to the testing site. This is a Thursday. My insurance is going to expire the next day, Friday. And I'm going to be busted, broke. It's going to get shipped to Connecticut to see if they're going to let me go to long-term disability, but I'm going to have zero money coming in. So everything was riding on this, and so I get to this test site, and it's a 2-hour GTT. I said, no, ma'am, this has got to be a 4-hour GTT. And I pulled all this paperwork. I said, it's got to be, well, you're going to have to go. So I went up to the doctor. They corrected it. Several hours transpired, And the reason I'm thankful I went through that instead of the 2-hour, I did the test, and they gave me this rich, sugary concoction, and I started feeling like crap, a few hours into it. And I thought, they're going to find something,
Right.
I feel too bad. And so it seemed like weeks or months, but finally I got a call. And I just knew that I had, like a test, I knew I'd aced it, and I felt confident. Let me put it that way. I don't want to sound too arrogant, but so I get a call, and it's from his office, and it's the nurse, and she's like, we got to see you right away. And I said, it's about that test, right? She goes, yes, sir. We got to see you right away. And that sense of urgency, I thought, okay, they've discovered something. So I said, well, look, I have no insurance. My wife is a registered nurse. If we go down there, would you just let me know the results without me making an appointment because I don't have any money? He said, oh, yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely. So we get to the site, we get to the doctor's office, and she's talking to Kathy, and she says, we would say your husband's a type 2 diabetic. I said, yes, I figured this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only time you're ever having to hear that diagnosis.
Like, I'm right. I figured this out.
I'm finally right about
And then
something.
you're like, oh, shit, I'm type 2 diabetic.
So I couldn't see the doc. So I said, well, I called and left messages at what I do, and he says, well, I'm not going to call you that now. I said, why? He goes, because now you're not insured. If I call you a diabetic, that's going to follow you the rest of your life. He goes, I'm going to call you hyperinsulinemic. It's the same thing. You just got too much insulin. I said, what's the remedy? He said, lose weight. I said, I knew it. When my weight went up, this crap started happening. So what happened is I'm ready to go back to the plant. Music was, because of my agoraphobia and my crippling social anxiety, music, I used to play baseball. I wanted to pitch for the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
Or the Astros second. But reality is I could not, I had the physical ability to pitch good, these big old long arms, Between that and my adrenaline, I could really throw a ball. But I couldn't deal with it up here. Like Yogi Berra said, like half a baseball is 50 sentimental or something like that. Yeah. I didn't have it up here. And it's the same thing with music. I couldn't get in front of people. So I reckoned that. I was okay with it. So the way I wanted to do it, Sam, is I wanted to make a bunch of money, like at the plant or whatever, and then go in the studio and do it like, is that guy named Jankin or whatever from Houston?
Jandik, yeah.
Jandik.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like Jandik, like this unknown.
Right, it's just a record.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was the plan of attack all along. And so I was ready to get back to the plant.
So what year did you record Sandcastles?
So the lead up to Sandcastles, and this is what's ironic about it. So I'm losing this weight, right? And the way I'm doing it, Kim, is I'm running my ass off. I am really trying to spike that metabolism so I can get back to my plant, because I didn't know if they were going to approve me for long-term disability.
Right.
So all this weight's come off of me. I've lost all 50, 60 pounds, but something's wrong up here. There's this darkness coming over me. And I knew I was dying. I knew I was. And I told my wife, I said, Kathy, I'm dying. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I can't tell you, but I know I'm dying. I'm actively dying. And I said, it's not depression. This is a sense I've never had before. And I was going to St. Pius, and I'd met this young couple, and really cool. They used to have a band called Wayside Drive. They played in Houston, a rock band.
Yeah.
And so we got to be good friends. And I called him one day. His name's Jeremy, and I can't remember his last name right now because it's been 12 years since we did Sandcastles, but I told him the spill. I said, I'm sick. Is there something wrong with me, dude? Could you record me? If something happens, I don't want to take these to the grave. And he says, yeah, it's weird you call me because I'm just wrapping up my first album for this dude. And when we finish in about a month, we'll record you. I said, okay, cool. So that was the plan. This was 2011. And
so you're like, I'm dying. I have to record these songs.
Yeah, exactly, for posterity, because I didn't have anything else to leave my children. And so we were going to record on a Tuesday, and I had started like a month prior to this. When I was running, I started having this pain down here. It's like I'd pulled this muscle, but it was getting worse. It was getting really bad, and it was getting to the point like they needed a catechist at the church, and I'd become Catholic, so I was, I'd been raised Southern Baptist, so I'd come at it. I studied a whole lot about Catholicism, so I was excited, and they're like, we love it when a Protestant becomes a Catholic because. What do they call them? Cradle Catholics. They generally don't. They just accept and don't ask questions. You guys usually do a lot of research, and so I was at the time. I was teaching, and I would go down, halfway through Mass, and I'd walk with the Bible over my head, and I would I'd look like Hunchback of Notre Dame, just dragging my leg behind me. And Kathy's like, "You're looking ridiculous." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, You're in so much pain. Everybody's feeling sorry for you. I said, I'm old. I'm 46 years old.
You just thought it was age.
Yeah.
Well, that's get it out.
It's a muscle cramp.
I'm 46. What do you expect? I'm over the hill. And she says, no, there's something wrong with you. And I was thinking about what I've been feeling with this death thing. And I said, so she took me to my daughter Emily's. And she said, would you talk to your dad? He's getting ridiculous. She said, Dad, lift your pants leg up. I lifted it up and said, oh my gosh, we got to get you to the hospital. Well, my leg was about this big and red and hot.
Oh no.
And I go to St. John's over here in Clear Lake in the emergency room, and they said, sir, why do you come in? I said, sir, look, I'm an agoraphobic. And since I was a little boy, I was diagnosed when I was a teenager. I'm a hypochondriac. And any time that I would feel bad, they said it was all in my head. And I just figured I'd pulled something. He goes, no, you've got something called a DVT, and it's a massive DVT. And we're going to have to put you in the hospital right away and start working on this. And so they put me in the hospital. And the week before that, Kim, I had woke up, I couldn't breathe. And I said, Kathy, it feels like somebody stabbing me in my back. And she goes, what do you mean? It's like somebody stabbing me with an ice pick. I couldn't catch my breath. And so fast forward 2 weeks later, she's like, you remember when you complained? Well, her being a nurse, she says, I'm afraid you got these things called pulmonary embolisms. Tell that to your doctor. So the doctor comes in, and I express that to him, and he does a CT scan. Well, he finds 2 humongous clots in this lung and pneumonia in that lung. And I'm like, golly, I really don't overcompensate,
Right, no shit. Wow, it's just mental. It's like everything in the world's going wrong. Yeah.
And something compelled Kathy to bring this book by a gentleman named Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. And I read that book in the hospital, and I just made peace with God. I said, God, if you're ready, I'm ready. I'm ready. I mean, I'm kind of bummed that I'm not leaving anything behind. I'm kind of bummed I didn't make anything out of my life, but I mean, pragmatically speaking, I'm bummed. But at the same time, who am I? Because you're like literally a fly on the wall, and you start to, like we were talking earlier before we came on air about the World War II series. It puts things in perspective, and you start thinking, I am nobody. Yeah. I am nobody.
I'm probably lucky I just got to do what I got to do.
Exactly. Yeah. So I had just this peace. And they were like, you are not to get out of this bed unless you have to do number 2, Wow. Because they don't want to dislodge one of those clots. So it was kind of, in a way, a thrill ride, because they were shooting me in the stomach with this stuff called Lovenox to try to rapidly thin my blood. But every breath was like a Russian roulette thing. Yeah. So in a sadistic way, it was kind of like Russian roulette, It was like, is this the breath that's going to take me out, It's kind of a weird thrill ride. But that I called Jeremy, and I said, hey, dude, I mean, we're not going to be able to record. And he said, well, hey, you want me to bring my laptop? We'll just record you in the hospital. But I had IVs, and I said, dude, I won't be able to pick my guitar right now, and I can't sing because of these clots. And I said, look, if I live, we'll do it. And if I don't, that's okay. We tried. And I lived. And that was really what lit the fire under me, like once I got use of my arms and my lungs, we started doing sandcastles in his bedroom, and he had a little studio set up, and I don't know if it was a laptop or a regular computer, but we did them there, and I didn't have much money, so it's not real elaborate, but
yeah, but it's the songs. That's a hell of a record. I mean, the songs are good.
Thank you, Sam, for that. I was happy with it, but 13 months passed, and I sold like 5 copies, and I'm like, kind of like what Craig had said, people don't know that they don't know me. And that's where I made the fateful decision to...
you had to get on Facebook, didn't you?
Yeah, I had to get on Facebook. And I had to do the open mic thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's where it all started. And it was just a slow... Now, granted, getting my sea legs was... Once I got on the proverbial horse, I got some confidence. The first one was glorious. My dad was there. One of my daughters was there. Craig was there. Got a great ovation. Played a banjo tune. It was really cool. And the next week, I'm thinking the same ambiance is going to be in that room. So I'm on the horse. I got to stay on the horse. Dad's still with me because I'm still, agoraphobic. And so you walk in the Mucky Duck. You guys have all been there. They got that one table right when you enter, and there's a crowd, probably 8 people, and they're being really, really loud. And I'm still very vulnerable to any criticism or anything. And I was the first on the list, Actually, it was number 2. They leave number 1 open. And so I was going to be the first. And this guy walks in. He says, oh, man, it's all taken up, all the names. I said, well, dude, I'm number 2. If you want to jump me and just go to number 1. So he sang beautifully, played the piano beautifully, and you couldn't hear him. That table was being so loud. So I'm getting like butterflies in my stomach. I'm like, golly, man. So I get up there and I get through my first, I get 3 songs. So I get through my first one. I'm halfway through my second one and I lose my shit, man. I stopped right there and I said, look, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but that table's so loud, I can't hear myself up here. And at that stage, you could hear a pin drop.
I bet.
And I'm like, immediately I knew it was a faux pas. And I'm start to crawfish. I said, no, it's not you guys. It's not you. It's me. And so the sound guy just jacks everything up. So everything's blaring. And I'm like, oh, you screwed up now, dude. I get to the 2 songs and I'm doing damage control best I can. I get off and I go to the guy that hosted. I won't say his name because he's still host. And I said, man, I'm sorry for saying it. He goes, hey, he bitched me out, man. He chewed me out. He pointed his finger at me and he scolded me. And we're friends now. So but I'm still not going to say his name. But he says, you never get on the table. You got that? You got a problem with sound? You say so to me. Well, it had nothing to do with the sound. It had to do with Charles wearing his heart on his sleeve.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking internally, you dumb son of a bitch. You've been writing for 40 years and you're not good enough for 30 years at that stage. And you're not good enough to command attention. So I self-harm through my...
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
You kill yourself all the time with what you're thinking.
Exactly. And this gentleman, bless his heart, I love him to death. He was there, Mark Benham, and I just played a house concert last week, and Mark was there. He's with me right from the get-go, and he grabbed me, he says, Charles, I'm glad you said something, because if you hadn't said something, I was going to say something. There's things on all these tables. You're supposed to be quiet and respectful. And he says, so I'm glad you did that. You did it right. So I had a little bit of validation, and I realized that we're all kind of that way. All the songwriters, we're all a little bit sensitive. I guess you got to be sensitive to be a songwriter.
I think so.
But I was done. That was it.
Just 2 open mics and
2 open mics.
That was enough for you?
I said, that's it.
Audiences suck.
I'm done with this bullshit. Been there, done that, got the T-shirt. I'm finished.
Yeah.
And I told Daz, I'm done. I'll go back to selling my copies on Amazon or whatever, but I don't need this shit. And then the 3rd one rolls around, and it's a Tuesday. And I was on Facebook, and this article came out. It's by a gentleman up in New York. He's a concert pianist, and he would practice like 8 hours a day. And he had a condo, I think it was in eyesight of the Twin Towers. And when the planes hit that day, he was severely traumatized, like so many of us were, but especially him, seeing it and living in New York. And so Sam, he went to rehearse the next day, and he opened his piano and immediately closed it. He says, "What's the use of it? It's frivolous, there's no use." So he didn't play his piano for weeks, like 2 or 3 weeks. And he said, I started noticing in the aftermath, they started doing these benefits, the telethons and what have you. And they were all centered around music. And he goes, I realized music was healing. He says, I'm a physician. I'm a physician of the soul. He starts self-talking this. It is important what I do. And he goes, if I can just touch one heart, it's worth it. And I bought into it. I bought into what he was selling, And this was a commencement address he was giving to some college grads. And I thought, I'm a physician of the soul. If one person is touched by my music. So I told my dad, so let's go back. Let's go back. And it was a glorious night. And I met this girl named C4 Abrahimi. She was playing, I just felt a kinship to her. She was, do you know who C4 is?
Yeah.
She felt like a fish out of water, like I felt like a fish out of water. She's wearing spandex, carrying a Flying V electric guitar. And I thought, this girl is just the bomb, And she's playing I could tell she's an open D or open G. And she's sounds very country. Her voice is very, very country, and it just like none of the pieces fit. But that's what, in my mind, made it cool.
Right.
But you could see she was awkward and felt, she was blushing, and she got through like half of one song. So I can feel her pain. So she's walking by me, and I just grabbed her arm and said, "You did a wonderful job." And man, that must have just been manna to her, because she goes out, she goes, "Thank you so much." And she leaves, comes back and gives me a little EP she had done. And I think, I've got to say something encouraging to her, So I follow her outside. I said, C4, her name's Cecilia, but she's the fourth Cecilia, so that's why she gave herself the moniker, the letter C, the number 4.
Yeah.
I said, C4, you've got to, I noticed you're playing an open D, I think. She said, yeah. I said, I'm a banjo player. I play clawhammer banjo. And I said, you got a great country voice. Have you ever thought about, it's what you're doing. It's basically a strumming thing.
Yeah.
She goes, I've always wanted to play banjo. I said, if you got a couple seconds, I'll give you a quick lesson. I'd already played my set. So I showed her, and I gave her a little clawhammer banjo lesson in the parking lot there in the street, and she was listening, and she dug it, but she says, like, Charles, I hate to cut you short, but I got to go play another open mic. I said, wait, you can play 2 in one night? And she goes, yeah, you got to go. There's this place called the Last Concert Cafe, and this is early. Gosh, Sam, I played my first open mic, I think, in September or October of 2012. So this was still 2012. So that's what started my odyssey. I said, okay. So I cut my dad. I said, Dad, I got to put my big boy pants on. I got to grow up. I got to try to do this by myself. So I went to the Mucky Duck and then went over to the last concert, and Jimmy Lee Dean was hosting. I don't know if you guys ever played there during that time or not, but Jimmy Lee Dean, God rest his soul, we just lost him.
Yeah, we knew him from playing with Wendy. Yeah,
he was quite a character, and he hosted it, and I could hear him. I was out in the parking lot in front of the last concert, and I could hear him, coming over the fence, and I'm out there shaking, dude. I'm physically unable to even hold my guitar. I'm shaking so bad. I'm by myself, trying not to depersonalize, but I'm rerunning these things. Okay, physician for the soul, God let you live. I'm trying to give myself confidence, even if it's bullshit.
Yeah, give yourself that pep talk.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it's baloney. So I get in there and I'm shaking and everything, but I get through it. And there was a guy performing that night named Trey Martinez, and he was playing a song called Medicine, I think it was, from a guy. I love this guy. He's a singer-songwriter out of Seattle, but his name's not coming to mind. It starts with a J, but he's in that Sub Pop group up there. Mm-hmm. Maybe it'll come to mind in a second, but he's playing a cover of him. And I saw his girlfriend there, and I gave her a copy of Sandcastles. I said, is that your boyfriend? And she said, yeah. I said, I love it. So the next week rolls around, and I just cut the Mucky Duck out. I said, this is my tribe. This is more low rent. This is more like me.
Yeah. But no, I understand. Well, it's good to find your community.
Yeah.
Place.
Yeah, exactly, Sam. Mucky Duck, I love the Mucky Duck. Don't get me wrong. Well, actually, I don't love it, but I I like it. Anytime you have a venue to play, that's a blessing.
Yeah.
But the reason I say I don't love it is because I don't feel comfortable there. I never feel like I'm in my element there.
Same, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, like Kenny's house, I don't know why, but it felt like a hand in glove at the cafe, and that became my place. And so that fourth week, Trey, I'm talking to Charlie Harrison, and Charlie had seen me at my first open mic. He'd seen me blow up at the second one, and we're on the side there Charlie's getting ready to play, and I'm next after him. And he says, Charles, so Trey's coming in, I'm talking to Charlie. He says, Charles, I got a gig at a place called Where's Waldo? He said, it's a 3-hour gig. You want half of it, and I'll take half of it. He said, yeah, man, yeah. So it's going to be my first gig,
Yeah.
So Charlie exits to play, and Trey, I'm talking to Trey. He says, you gave a CD to my girlfriend last week. I didn't know whether it hit me or thank me.
Right.
He says, I love it, man. He goes, like, I'm a big fan, He goes, let me know when you're going to play. I want to come see you. And I said, well, I just got a gig. He says, where's it at? I said, it's called Where's Waldo's? And he said, dude, that's right down the street. I live on like 16th Street. So I'm playing this gig like a week or two later, and Trey shows up with 4 dudes, and they're watching me. And they treated me like royalty, Sam. I mean, afterwards, I felt like Johnny Cash or something. They're all surrounding me, grinning and looking up at me. And I thought, I wasn't used to that kind of attention. It was kind of weird, surreal. And they said, hey, will you come talk to us? We live at this house, and we want to invite you over and talk to you. And so I told Kathy. I said, you mind if I go down there? They want to discuss something with me. And they said, no, go ahead. And so we want to hear your story. And I tell them my story, and they get down to the nitty gritty. So here's the deal. We're filmmakers. We're doing a documentary about the Last Concert Cafe, because it was a brothel, like in its heyday,
Yeah.
And
Nice.
and that's why they still have the red door and everything. But we want to integrate people like you that are trying to get into the music business into the documentary. And then we found 2 people we like, you and this girl named Charity Ann. Well, I'd seen Charity play and was kind of bowled over, by her delivery. And I kind of mixed feelings about her, because sometimes when she's in that sweet spot, it was amazing. And sometimes in her delivery, it got a little too body for me, So I was kind of hypercritical, but at the same time, so
You knew talent when you saw it.
yeah, at the same time I'm thinking,
Yeah, and she's killer.
and I'm already thinking I'm going to write for her. I mean, I'm already planting the germ and the seed, because I want to get off the damn stage, really. I want to be like, my dream is to be, again, it's like I want to pitch baseball. Yes, I want to do that, but I know I can't do that. It's stretching my boundaries with my crippling anxiety. And so I met Charity. There's some backstory that I don't want to go into, because it's just too involving a lot of tears and stuff. But I just started wanting to protect CA. I call her CA, and write for her. And she's just had a lot in her life. She's been through a lot. And we got to be, because of Blueprint and us playing shows together, we got to be, she played for 5 years in the USO. So even though I was older than her, I was about 2 decades older, from a performance standpoint, I was a novice. She was a seasoned pro. From a songwriter standpoint, I had a lot more songs of age. So it was really kind of cool. And so I said, well, CA, can I write for you? So that's when I started saying, well, maybe I can do claw hammer techniques. So it kind of, and I'd seen Malcolm Holcomb, and so it started to expand my deals, Sam. But what would happen is, so I'd write these bombastic delivery songs for CA, but she's self-taught as well. She has a very idiosyncratic style. So I would end up playing them, and it would add to my repertoire, repertoire, however you said the word. So it actually helped me. It gave me more diversity when I would play, like with Chris Hardy down at Union Tavern, or in a busy bar where I needed something more, louder and
had punch through the mix.
Exactly. And the way I dealt with it, honest to goodness, is I just kept taking more and more Valium and drinking a lot more booze. That's why I stayed on the stage, and it got to be a pretty bad train wreck. I wrote like crazy, because you got to remember, I went through the thing with the blood clots, and I already felt like I dodged the Grim Reaper, and I'd gotten a second chance. So there was that continued sense of urgency. And so I looked at it synonymous to like a soldier. Soldier, I would think, doesn't want to leave their home and the comforts of their family or job or whatever to go fight in a foreign place, obviously, but they'll do it out of conviction.
Yeah.
Well, I had a conviction that I need to do this while I'm not getting any younger, type of thing. So that's what compelled it. And I guess I wrote 40, 50 songs. It was crazy.
Yeah. No, they were flowing out. I remember seeing you and every time, like, I just wrote like these 2 or 3. It wasn't like, I got this new song. It was like, here's this set of new songs I just worked out.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and it wasn't like it was just half-baked ideas either. Like, it was full-fledged, coherent songs.
It's insane. I look back at that now, it's almost like 2 different persons. Because knock on wood, I haven't had a volume since 2019. I carry them with me still, kind of like you would carry a fire extinguisher, break glass in case of. But just the cognitive the next day was just not worth it,
Yeah.
Well, it was always wild because I remember hearing you always talk about agoraphobia and all that stuff, and it was like, there's one thing when I think Charles, I think like a couple things. Just probably one of the biggest like matchmaker kind of people. Because I mean, oh, dude, have you met this person? Have you met this person? Like, yeah. But I guess in a way you think about that, it's like y'all talk, and I'll just stand here and let y'all have your moment. And so I guess that makes a little bit of sense. But it always just really engaging on stage. Just even when it was just kind of, you could tell it wasn't necessarily comfort, but there was never a point where you were just completely disconnected. Like, you always were good at connecting with people.
Well, it's funny you say that because it's like a new birth. It's like I finally am doing what I was made to do.
Yeah.
And so it was an unspeakable joy, dude. I mean, really. It was like I found my life finally. At 50 years old, I found my life. I was so grateful and thankful, and I still am. Sometimes I'll cry out of thankfulness. No,
I understand that completely.
I was on the radio yesterday. It was Sunday or Saturday with Sandy Wyman on his show, and started crying, thinking about last Concert Cafe gave me a Tuesday night show, and I just knew pragmatically. I thought, golly, they're not going to hear me every night, and so I was able to use that as a springboard to kind of accelerate what I had lost starting so late, to let me network, and reach out to, to artists, come out there and play. It's, met Matt Harlan and Mighty Org, and I would pay them $50 out of my pocket, but it was worth it. We got good crowds, and I did that for 27 months. And so
thank you for having us out, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that was one of the first times really locally me and Kim did stuff together.
Yeah, it was great. Like I said, it was a great networking thing, and James Wilhite eventually would close out the night, and it just got to be too hard for me to try to gig and make that happen too, because I put a lot of work into that show, trying to, Tom Turner would have his band on to begin with, but again, it helped me, and I always wanted to write more, Sam, because being, is the word transient where you're stuck in one spot, or I can't remember, or is it non-transit?
Non-transit. Transit is
non-transit. You're stuck. You've got to have a different wrinkle, right? Because audience, I don't care who you are. Like if Bob Dylan came down here, he would pack it first night. But if he stayed there 365 days a year, he's not going to pack the crowd. Maybe he might, but I don't see him selling out every night. Yeah,
it reaches a point where it's like, Bob's playing again.
Exactly.
Right.
And so
there's a saturation point.
Exactly. And so there is a reason people travel and tour, because it's new.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the reason I would do that. But I realized too that I've got to play. I've got to play outside just the cafe. So I finally, cut ties with it. But it's not been pretty.
Can I ask you a question? I want to backtrack a little bit because it sounds to me like you've always written.
Yes.
You've always written songs. Have you always played?
The first day Kathy taught me how to play a guitar, I wrote a song. Kathy was a minister's daughter, and she would sing in church when she started playing when she was 7. And I always felt like I had one or two callings as a little boy, either be a baseball player, because I love baseball, or to follow in the path of Glenn Campbell. When I was about 7, I walked in, it was at 1969, and my parents had that playing, and I'd never seen a guitar player. So I'm watching this show. It's called the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm watching this thing, Kim, and I'm like, what is this? Who is this? What is happening here? It was like heaven come to earth. I just was transformed. And I said, whatever he's doing, I've got to do this. They're sitting in this circle with John Hartford playing. And the problem was, in that day and age, we're talking 69, I didn't know anybody played the guitar. There was no cell phones back then. There was no cable TV. There was no YouTube. There was no nothing, So I just stored that in the back of my mind. But we moved, and I want to tell this story because it's either a weird coincidence or some kind of divine intervention or something. So we moved. We're in Deer Park at this stage. My mom was the manager of this town called Parktown Townhouses. And when I see this Glenn Campbell thing, so we moved the next year to a house on a place called Pine Lane, which is only like half a mile from townhouses. But it put me in a different school. I went from Carpenter Elementary in Deer Park to Deer Park Elementary. So I didn't know any of the kids there, which ironically, even with my shyness and anxiety, in that particular instance, it was a plus because I wasn't that intimidated. None of these kids knew me.
Yeah.
So it was the first day of choir tryout. And my last name beginning with B, I was the first one. And we had to sing a cappella this song, Our Country 'Tis of Thee. I don't know what the title of that.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's it.
Is that the title?
'Tis of thee.
Yeah. And so the guy says, okay, Charles, we want you to sing the song. And they may have played a clip of it, or I don't know. But there's a lady on the piano. Actually, she came in late. But I start for this gentleman. And he's got this big grin on his face. And in my young mind, I'm just killing it. Because I'm thinking, I want to be Glenn Campbell, and this is my day to be Glenn Campbell.
Going for it hard.
Yeah, exactly. And so after I wrap up, the piano player comes in and he says, Charles, will you play this again and sing it again? I said, oh, yeah. So I sang it again, and he's looking over at her, and they both smiling ear to ear at each other. And again, in my mind, I think, yeah, I killed it, And I couldn't sleep that night. I was so excited about being in choir and getting to sing. I couldn't sleep. I went the next day. They had all the names posted, and my name wasn't on the list. I mean, it's just a shit ton of names.
Yeah.
But I'm nowhere to be found. And I'm like, wait, I'm the only one they asked to sing twice. And they were smiling at each other, almost laughing, And I, even in my young mind, I thought they were making fun of me, that they were mocking me. It broke my heart, man. And I never tried out for choir again the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Not in junior high school, not in high school. I kept thinking about that. But before that man had started, he was talking about this guy named Bob Dylan. He talked about him, it seemed like forever. And it imprinted that name in my brain, Bob Dylan, So fast forward many years later, I'm meeting Craig Kinsey. And Craig's hearing some of my stuff. He's with a friend of his named Manuel, and they're Kathy's going through nursing school. We're living at a place called London Bell Apartments while she's going to San Jacinto nursing school. And I think I was working in a chemical plant. And so we're playing some music together. And Craig says, man, I really dig your stuff. He goes, can I make a recommendation to help you, advance with your writing? I said, what? He goes, listen to Bob Dylan. And at this stage, I've heard Bob Dylan. In my day, it was a song called You Gotta Serve Somebody.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, he sounds like shit, He may be a great writer,
Yeah.
But I'd read at this stage, that he'd written All Along the Watchtower and all these things. So I knew he was a prolific writer. But he goes, no, you need to listen to his old stuff. I said, his old stuff? He said, yeah, his early stuff. I said, okay, I'll check it out. Well, at this stage, Sam, I'd been playing guitar for about 10 years. And I'd kind of run into a rut. Kathy had showed me the cowboy chords. And I had devised every way imaginable in my mind with no teacher and with no YouTube or nobody to show me. I would just take a D chord. I'd strum it up, strum it down, find ways to pick it. Any way I could devise to do something with that chord. But there was a song I was hearing in my head. I said, I'm not playing like that. I don't know where I'd heard this song, but I could hear it in my head. And it just played repeatedly in my head. So anyhow, I'm listening to Craig, and I said, okay, I'll check him out. So I go to Walmart. This is actually I don't even think CDs, they may have been their infancy. This is 1990. I was still listening to cassettes. And they had Bob Dylan Volume 1 Greatest Hits and Volume 2. Same money at Walmart. Mm-hmm. But Volume 2, you got a lot more songs. I thought, well, gosh, I'll get a better idea of what this guy does. So I'm listening to the album, and I'm okay with it. Some of them I like, some of them I'm not that crazy about. And all of a sudden, that song that I'd been hearing every day in my life, it seemed like every day, it's probably exaggeration, but it kept coming back in my mind. It's a song called Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. And I said, and it's like, it's like.
Yeah, that song's been stuck in my head forever.
The song.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is so weird. I hear Glenn Campbell, I want to play. I try to sing on Campbell, I get mocked, but this guy's talking about Bob Dylan. This song's playing in my head for all these years. And then Craig tells me to listen to Dylan, and I hear the song. And that's when I first learned how to Travis pick. I said, okay, I got to figure this out. Well, back in the day, you guys would be too young to remember this, but there's a place called Guitar Gallery in Houston. And they specialize mostly in nylon string guitars. And I didn't know where else to go. I said, hey, man, there's a song called Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. Could you teach me how to play, He says, yeah, it's cost you $50. I said, I don't care. Just please teach me how to play it. And he was demonstrating. He used to play it in his repertoire, and the guy that owned the place. And I was able to pick it up. And he goes, man, you already got it. He goes, just give me 25 because you picked it up faster than I expect you to. And that was the first step, dude. That was after 10 years, just this being in this desert of not being able to advance, once I learned how to Travis pick, and especially listen to Dylan, because Dylan, what I came to realize through listening to him, Sam, is he would take poetic license to play a role, to put himself in somebody else's shoes. I didn't know at that stage, I was so naive about it. I thought everything had to be biographical or autobiographical. It had to be my own experience. I couldn't, viscerally feel what you're feeling and try to imagine it.
Yeah.
With Dylan, that changed all that. So he was instrumental, no pun intended, but with the Travis picking and that's when my writing really started to improve greatly. But I just think that sometimes I still think back, is that some kind of divine thing? Or was that just a weird coincidence, that whole thing?
It's amazing when those songs that get stuck in your head. I mean, I think a lot of people have that where it's like there's some song I heard that when you finally hear it, you're like, oh, that's it.
Yeah,
that's this thing that kind of got me going with music, and just was always in there, and I just never remembered where it came from.
Well, I got a lick from you guys one night. I know it came from you guys, and I didn't want to completely plagiarize y'all, but I almost certain it came from y'all. But so I found a way to Travis pick it and hide it. But it became, I think, one of the best songs I've ever written. It's called "Back to You." It's based on I'd seen the Coen Brothers, Barton Fink.
Yeah.
And that's about a songwriter with writer's block, and he holds up in the Hollywood. Well, I love everything Coen Brothers that I've seen.
Yeah.
And when I was researching, they had writer's block, and they said, well, hell, let's just do a movie about a guy with writer's block. And I had that lick.
It's always fun. I tell my non-musician friends, if you have a favorite song, just imagine how it sounded in that artist's head.
Yeah.
Exactly. They could not possibly get everything in their head out. Mm-mm. I mean, maybe Prince could, because he could play everything.
Right.
But
he's a genius.
Yeah. So
well,
I think about that when I listen to your songs. I'm like, I wonder how that sounds in Charles's head.
Well, what I tell my kids, my younger kids are both writers, Audrey and Dalton. I just tell them, look, write songs you'd want to hear if you didn't write songs. You have, if somebody's not scratching that itch for you, you scratch the itch, And I've been teasing myself about this. I was talking to Vern. You know who Vern is?
Yeah.
At the Burling Hall concert last week. I don't know what brought the subject up, but when I started writing, Reagan was president. And you talking about the turd in the punch bowl. I mean, singing sad songs in 1980, 81
right, yeah.
was, the antithesis of what was happening. If you could fog a mirror in Houston, Texas, you could get a job, a well-paying job. All you needed was a pulse. And it was the Love You Blue days. Money was plentiful. Oil was plentiful. And I was writing these little sad songs because the muse for me was my therapy. I didn't want to be on Xanax and what. Now, granted, those other songs were very maudlin, unquestionably maudlin. I hadn't really learned how to craft a song, but that's what I would recommend any songwriter to edit, to listen to your stuff to the degree that you can. Try to listen to you as though that's not you.
Yeah.
You're listening to a stranger, and be very, very critical of it, and then try to tweak it. I was thinking about this on the way over, since this is more of a songwriting thing about the journey and stuff. I learned a lesson just a couple years ago from Sarah Van Busker. Sam, it has helped me so substantially. During the pandemic, I wrote like 5 songs because everything paled in comparison to what was going on in the world.
Yeah.
My problems seemed petulant,
Yeah.
So I did a lot of banjo work, worked on Foggy Mountain Breakdown. I did Iron Man. I don't know if you heard my version of Iron Man.
Yeah.
I did these elaborate banjo things just to still do something musical. But I wasn't inspired to write because of that, because my muse is sadness. But when I would write, because of something Sarah Van Busker said. So we're at Anderson Fair one night watching Sarah. She's with Ken Gaines and his guitar player and another person. So Sarah finishes the song, and Ken's, because it's a songwriter thing, he's asking her about the song. And he's like, "This is a really great song, Sarah." And he goes, "Thank you, thank you." She goes, "Yeah, that took me a year to write." And I'm like, "Whoa, a year?"
Yeah.
That's inconceivable with everything I'd ever thought. And she said, "Yeah, I had the first little bit of lyrics, and then I finally, a month or two or whatever it was, I wrote some more. And then a year later, the last verse came to me." And that was a paradigm shift for me, because I was of the old school opinion, like John Lennon supposedly said to George Harrison, when you sit down to write a song, you don't stop until it's finished, because you're in the muse and you don't want to lose the muse. And that was always my thinking. And I thought, okay, I'm going to, because there's a lot of times I've finished songs, I wasn't really completely satisfied with them.
Yeah.
But I thought it's taboo to go back once you've sealed the deal, to unseal it,
Yeah.
And I can honestly say the last 5 songs I've written, from a craft point of view, I'm really proud of them. I listened to them as though I didn't write them. One in particular I wrote for my dad right before he died from COVID. He'd asked me to do a song for my mom. So it's my dad singing to my mom. I have never recorded it, but it's called But Then There's You.
Yeah, you played that at the Big Top.
Played it at the Big Top.
Yeah, it was beautiful, yeah.
But that's just coming from me at 60 years old. I'm still learning how to craft. Now, some of the old songs off Kiss the Sun, like some of them go 5 minutes, like Kiss the Sun itself, just kill them all. But what I'll do, one of the mechanisms I've used in my songwriting, I'll take that first verse after a big break, and I'll repeat that first verse. I notice that's a little methodology that I use a lot of my writing. But I think I've read this, and I think I've experienced it. There's a reason songs are generally about 3 to 3.5, because of our attention spans as humans, So I'm learning, like, when I play these songs, don't repeat that first, you know what I mean? And when we played Big Top, I don't think I did Kiss the Sun the way I recorded it.
I think a lot of it too in theater, you have your 3 acts.
Yes.
And you kind of like your story you're telling comes in the 3 acts.
Exactly.
Where your choruses kind of act as your intermissions between the story to kind of, give you your theme.
Well, it's funny you say that, because Zest Magazine, I used to always get Zest Magazine, Andrew Dansby had this article about the operas and things. They generally would last like 35 minutes. And that was the theory, that the attention span for the audience, because they were almost all, orchestras and choirs, concertos, however you say that. They're all like 35 minutes, So when I did Sandcastles, it's right there at 35 minutes, So, but these are little things you learn the hard way, You can't learn them in a book. You have to get on stage and just go through the hard knocks, There's no easy way. You guys know this, if anybody knows it.
It's the same thing you're talking about with like pitching and stuff, man. You got to throw a million baseballs to get accuracy built up, arm, speed. It's not that first pitch it's not going to be there. You have to keep doing it until eventually it all just falls into place.
It's it. And you got to find your tribe. If you like it, there's a guy named Leo Kottke. Have you ever heard of Leo Kottke?
Yeah. Leo Kottke, yeah.
A famous guitar player.
Yeah.
Well, I was living at home at this time in the mid-'80s, and I was reading it, I think it was a Chronicle or a Post, and Leo was coming to town, and he had just put out a new album. And I think it was like his 7th album. Everything up at that point had been instrumental. And on this one, he was singing. And the interviewer said, "You're singing on this. Why did you decide to sing?" He says, "Well, I liked them." And he goes, "I thought, it's a big world out there. If I like it, somebody else is bound to like it." And that little phrase hit home with me, because I wasn't getting a lot of attention when I would play for Kathy and family and friends. They didn't seem to like my stuff, And I thought, well, if I like it, there's bound to be somebody out there. But that's another thing, like you're talking about the pitch of Sam, is building your tribe, finding those people that can relate.
Oh, yeah.
They're out there.
Oh, yeah.
You just got to try to get through the mix, and that's not easy. It takes a lot of work.
And that's where it's, building your community in the music scene,
Yes.
because if you got people and they like what you do, chances are the people that like their music are going to like what you do because, that musician likes what you. So it's like kind of like, if you like this, like me, check out this buddy of mine that I really like. And
Exactly.
9.5 times out of 10, those people are like, yeah, like that's great.
Exactly. And so it is a matter of perseverance, and it's not easy.
It's rare we have, of all the shows we play with you over the years, I've never had anyone be like, oh, it was terrible. Everyone was like, holy shit, who's that guy? Normally it's like, we got to follow that dude? Like, what do we do to ourselves? Why do we put Charles first or second? Like, why did Charles play before us?
My main criticism, I don't know if you guys ever watch your own performances. I can't watch mine. I will at some stage, typically. Like I was on Sandy's show, I haven't watched it yet. I think they did a Facebook Live, and because I generally have a letdown. I get that adrenaline high, and now it's a weird thing, Sam, because I'm my most comfortable on a stage. It's weird. Even when I'm nervous, I'm just happy. I'm in my happy place doing what I enjoy to do. But when I get off, I have a terrible letdown. The next day I have a crushing depression. I've gotten used to it, and then the next day it just starts to abate, and then eventually I'll get around to listening to something. But one of my biggest criticisms of me, and I can't seem to break it, is because of the adrenaline, I generally will rush. I'll play stuff faster than it should be played. And I hate that about my stuff. Especially Kenny's. When I would play early Kenny stuff, it's like...
I think most people are that way, though. When you get there in front of everybody, it's that, again, go back to baseball, but no matter how much you're doing in practice, no matter how much you're like, I'm going full speed, it's never full speed in front of everybody and everything happening.
Exactly.
So I think it's like that, which I guess I have the opposite problem, Kim. Kim's only like, you're too slow.
I didn't want to say anything, but
since you brought it up,
that's where I'm like, I don't have that problem.
We always
Kim's
have a tempo argument here in Brightwire.
Speed it up. But I think it's because she's excited. I'm doing the same speed.
Yeah.
She's all like, play it faster.
So I just really love that you found your happy place at, how old are you now?
I just turned 60 in May. 60.
And you're happiest on stage when 10, 12 years ago, you could never even have conceived of?
Couldn't conceive of it.
Being on a stage.
Yeah, and that's, in your fantasies, like pitching for the Yankees, in your fantasies, but in terms of making it work. But it was a series of things. It was just getting older. And I have to philosophize about things. Like, I have to, talk to myself, why are you getting worked up? And this sounds morbid, but in a way it doesn't sound morbid, but everybody's dies. And it's like, why do I give a shit if this person hates me?
Yeah.
They're going to die.
I mean, that's really
And I don't mean that to be to make light of death or to make light of them, but it's like, why do I get myself so rankled over something that's temporary?
Right, yeah. There's that freedom of knowing that, the ride ends at some point.
Yes.
So just enjoy it, because it doesn't go forever.
It doesn't go forever.
Like, just take the ride, enjoy as much as you can of it. And if someone, this is same as you, like decades of experience of when it first came out, people were like, didn't like you. It was soul crushing to the point it was like, I don't know if we'll ever play that show again.
Yes.
But then when you get up and you're just like, you reach that point where my brother used to tell me that it's like, you've got to learn to fuck up.
Yeah.
You got to realize that everyone does.
That's right.
And I spent years as a concert photographer. I've seen the biggest bands in the world where, you got that telltale someone looked over and it was like, oh yeah, that dude hit a wrong
Right.
note. But then there's also that lesson that most people in the audience, 99% of them had no idea there was a mistake. And there's times where it's like, oh man, I really blew that. And even people who know our songs like, oh, it's cool the way this happened. And it was, that
was on
good.
Purpose.
You know what? You just hit on something that you're exactly right. And that's weird, because I remember when I would hear pieces of music, right? And I would say, I'm going to learn that. For instance, when first song I learned was a Bach piece called Jesus, Joy of Man's Desire. One of Kathy's friends could play it, right? I'm going to learn it. So I got a book of tab, since I can't read music, and I just meticulously worked through it. But when I heard him play it, Sam, I'm like, I can't, I'm bliss. Everything's bliss. But when I play, after playing it a billion times, you lose that dynamic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like you said, you don't realize they're hearing it for the first time. It's novel, or even if it's the second time or third, it's still novel compared to how many times we play it.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's just that, and there's that joy of, even if you know the song well, it's like, I get to see it happen live in front of me.
Exactly.
And you're not getting that mundane, like, where it's like, okay, we got to do it this way, this. We're looking at it more like a dance with various steps that have to take place. And they're just like, they're moving and I'm seeing it and I'm here and it's happening, which is funny because we're the same way as the audience when we're the audience.
Yes.
Like, dude, I get to see this guy play and it was great, you know, and you don't go, well, the solo was a little different.
Yeah.
Or this part, and he normally plucks this part here and he left that out, like ruined the whole show. It was like, dude, no, I got to see him.
Yeah.
And the version they played was great.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of it, you know.
It is. It really is.
And, you know, on that note, thanks for coming, Charles.
Dude, thank y'all. It's been an honor. I've looked for this.
And thanks for making it easy, man. We mostly just like, this is like you just kick cruise control.
When it comes to songwriting, I get so excited, dude. I could just talk for hours and hours about it. You know, I just love the craft of it, even though it's getting harder in this sense. I'm putting more pressure on myself now. I found this software called Master Writer, and I've been trying it, and the last couple songs I've used it. I really love that. And it's like, if you're a kid with crayons, it's like you got 5 crayons, now you got 500 crayons. You know?
Nice.
It's a really great tool. So
I'll check that out then.
Yeah, check it out. It's really nice. And so I love the craft. It's a beautiful thing, you know. And but thank y'all for having me. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you for always being a part of our lives for the last decade.
Absolutely, likewise.
You don't have any shows coming up, do you?
No. So what happened is I had hip replacement surgery, and I thought it would be healed by now, so I went ahead and did this house concert. And well, you guys know we played the big top thing, but I'm going to try to let this thing heal.
Maybe you should let yourself heal a little bit. They just replaced a major joint in your body.
I was going to play Scrabble on World.
Right, there it is.
Maybe write some more songs.
Right. Yeah. No, I need to. I really do. But I'm playing my banjo a lot. And
I'm no charity Ann, but you can write for me anytime.
Oh, I'd be honored to. I would be honored to.
Then we had to play it. Like, no.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
What are all these weird notes?
Charles like, dee-dee-dee, or just chunk. Oh, yeah, it's A minor C, we got that. But Charles makes it all pretty. Jing, jing, jing.
But yeah, thanks for coming. We really enjoyed the talk.
Thank you, Kim. I should appreciate it.
And like I say, man, we didn't even scratch the surface. We'll have to come back to Charles again one day. So
Right.
Yeah, I went into all that minutia about the health issues, but
it was important to show, you know, the arc of, you know, you went through all that. That's where you found the
and I like for people that, you know, because I've studied that stuff for so, and you know, ironically, that's where I got my clots, because I was sitting sequestered. I didn't know if you don't move for like 8 to 10 hours. I wanted to get back to my plant so bad that the irony was I wouldn't move. I would just be like going down the rabbit hole. Okay, you know, like what I learned about gamma aminobutyric acid and all that stuff. But that sitting, because I have a couple disorders with my blood, and so it was a perfect storm. I have something called protein 5 and protein S. So when you have that perfect storm and you're not moving, like people get on airplanes and get these clots. So it's ironic, but I'm glad it worked out the way it worked out, because if I hadn't have knocked on, you know, death's door the way I did, I would have never got on stage, Sam. That's just the truth.
You wouldn't have felt that urgency.
It did no urgency.
Yeah.
It took everything happening, I think.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't think I'd ever been rich enough to be a Jan Dick.
I think that's a good, you know, deal of music and a lot of songwriters taking a lot of times it's taking these horrible things and turning them into something beautiful that connects with other people and makes people feel better knowing they're not alone in this journey.
You know, I'm going to say a religious thing here. I'm reading this book by an Australian priest named Father Michael Casey, and he said basically exactly what you said. A lot of times we kick ourselves. He says, you know, you'll get off course. You think God has abandoned me or whatever. And he goes, but you can't. It's just like you can't fall off the end of the world, the edge of the world. He says you go all the way around the world, but guess where you do? You get back to where you began. Yeah. And I've kicked myself many times. It's like, because I didn't have courage when I was young. I was like, you're 60 years old and it's hard on you. Think if you'd have done this when you're 20s and all that stuff. But then I have to self-talk and say, dude, the fact you get to do it at all, the fact you didn't die, like you should have died, probably, you dumbass. So you gotta really realize it's never too late, because even if you go off course, eventually you get back to where on course. And I just thought that's a beautiful thing, you know. We can learn and grow and still be useful when we screw up.
All right, man. Thank y'all for listening to this episode of Music in the Minor League. If you like what you heard, please share the podcast with a friend. It's the best way for us to reach new listeners. If you enjoyed Charles, be sure to check him out on all your streaming networks and follow his website. Follow him on Facebook. That way you know when he's playing. He's still on the mend from hip surgery, but when he hits the stage, you're going to want to be there. Now we'll leave you with a song from Charles from his middle album called Kiss the Sun. This is my favorite one of his. It just gets me going, man. This song's called It's About Love, and we'll see you next time.
Billy was a good boy, raised up in Tennessee. Wanted to be like Jesus and to serve his country. Shipped off to Afghanistan, one tour turned into 5. Came back home to Tennessee, and that's where he took his life. It's about love. It's about love. It's about love. It's about love. Not an evil word was ever heard from her pretty little face. But Jenny held a secret that only her daddy knows. 'Cause Jenny died as a prostitute from a heroin overdose. It's about love. It's about love. It's about love. It's about love. Closet, then Carter's got liver pills. Meanwhile, down in Mexico, Jose fights just to breathe. Big Jim does everything he can to make damn sure that he don't leave. It's about love. It's about love. It's about love.